Hello everybody, welcome to SketchCraft Live. We're going to be doing a speed paint. Chrono Trigger speed paint. Speed paint. Joining me to talk about the speed paint is Brandon Mega Potato James. Brandon, say hello.
I can pronounce my words correctly. Hello, everyone.
Yeah. So, let's go over the gist right now. Really quickly, let me bring up the final and we'll talk about how we arrived there. Let's bring this up. Desktop. So here's the final Chrono Trigger print right here on my DeviantArt site. Zoom in. I put up nice watermarked free images on the DeviantArt because I care. This is what we're going to arrive at. To get to that point, I just want to show you all. I start with this. This is the black and white roughie. This is amazing. It looks just like this.
This is before all the tears, coffee, and lack of sleep.
Yeah, initially I thought the castle would be way bigger. Don't know how I feel about it in hindsight, but I had this idea that I have the castle, the four characters, it kind of tilted, the angle to make it more dynamic, and I wanted the Super Nintendo, the controller, giant. And even though the controller is not to scale, folks, they're just giant controllers because I think giant controllers are fucking awesome. So
Right.
this is what I start off with. I then turn that into the roughie, which looks like this, and I do that live here on the cast. So this is the basic color roughie, and then I go and draw the line arts, and right here. Now I did try to make a speed video of the line arts. I just want you to know, but even sped up 12 times, it came out to be 3 hours long. So I will have to save the line arts for a Digibooks in the future where I can make them to a PDF with like 100 images, because a 3 hour long regular cast is just going to be, it's not going to happen. And splitting it up into 3 other parts is pointless too. So now we are going to watch this turn into this. So let me bring the video up over here, enlarge it. You ready to go, Brandon?
I am ready.
So you know, folks, this is Photoshop CS5. I work in CS5. This is colored at 400 dpi, 300 dpi. It doesn't matter as long as it's 3,000 pixels wide by whatever, bigger. And these right here are the color flats. Now, Brandon, you do the separating flats, right?
Correct.
And then I turn them into color flats, which is all the characters' basic colors. This is what's used for basic cell shading. And then I turn the lines to an overlay layer. I make the lines dark red, set it to overlay, duplicate that and set that to a color burn and turn that opacity down to, or linear burn, and I set that down to about 10 to 20%, give or take, my preference. And I pick a linear burn because a linear burn, when you go over white, will make it a gray. If you do color and you put the lines over white, it'll just be transparent. You won't see anything. So, all right, so I'm going to hit play now. You ready, Brandon?
I am ready.
Play. All right. Let's watch how this goes. So this is me using gradient maps for the background.
Okay.
So these are gradient maps, and gradient maps are these gradients that Photoshop can use in these adjustment layers down here. That anything that's painted black and white underneath will become whatever color the gradient. So here you see blue, green, yellow. That means anything that's white to black. So anything that's white will be yellow. Anything that's 50% gray will be green. Anything that's black will be blue. That's how the gradient maps work. So that means that when I'm doing fully painted items, things that are like Digipaints and stuff, painterly that would have a lot of blended colors, it's easier to do that in black and white and let Photoshop work out the color with the gradient maps because you can reuse those colors over and over again. Basically.
Oh, instead of having to each time.
Yeah, instead of manually painting. And it's also a great way if you just want to build a basic, if you want to get everything kind of just basically working, all the basic greens and all the basic grass and all the basic rocks, you can always paint on top of the color, like merge it down, flatten it, and paint additional color on top. That's possible too. You don't have to try to get the gradient maps to get everything down for you. But in terms of getting all the basics together and the blending, it's way faster. You see me like paint things 10 times faster
Right.
than I normally. Now what you're seeing here is I've taken the characters, selected them, filled them all with this dark purple color because of the time of day I want to use a purple color. And I set it to multiply at about 60%, but I cut out the skin tones because I want their skin tones to be shaded with a redder color. So I cut out the skin tones, then select all their skin areas, fill that with red, and set that to a multiplier hard light, whatever I fluctuate between the two. So their skins have that animated kind of sully look. Otherwise, the shade on their skins would be more purpley, which is fine, but I want it to be more warm.
Right. So if you wanted to be a cooler, you might use like a blue.
I would use the purple color,
Oh, okay.
purple or red. I jump between the two. So you see me painting the background now in black and white. All I did to make this all look black and white is I filled a layer with black and set it to color. So when I'm underneath that, I can paint in and see it all in black and white. This is for
And
the
that
gradient maps.
and that's how you're getting all your different shades and kind of
Right,
lighting effect.
right.
And have you always done it that way, or is that something you've kind of come to learn lately?
I've come to learn that it's just easier with the digital paints to do that this way. Look how much easier it is to make those clouds. It's just airbrushing in extra whites, feathering the edges. And then when I turn that off, the gradient maps get turned back on and they're just sectioned out. I've selected the areas that should be. These clouds are going from yellow to like a white. That's how I get that yellow to white light. Here I'm messing with the rocks. These colors are based off my color roughy. I manually paint all these colors in with my color roughies, you know? So
Hmm.
I've already figured out what kind of colors I want everything to be. That's why I make the color roughy.
Right.
So I'm not over here trying to figure all this out when it's a 300 DPI, 400 DPI image, you know?
I can't remember a time where you didn't do it that way. I
Mm.
mean,
Welcome
eh,
to 2006. Yeah, that's when I really started. And you know, this came from t-shirts because in t-shirts they would have me sketch out a t-shirt design, right? But when you
uh-huh.
buy a t-shirt, is your t-shirt generally speaking like pencils on shirt?
No.
No, it's like a splotch of color.
Color blotches.
So I was like, this makes no sense to sketch out an idea and then you would render that in a shirt and none of it would make any sense. So I started blobbing colors on Photoshop, you know, using a
Hmm.
Wacom tablet, you know, just because it made more sense. And that became how I did covers and anything else that was going to. The final product was going to be in color. I'd sketch in color. Kind of makes sense.
Right.
But I used the black and white to get all the painting, the digital painting, the painterly things done because it's just way easier than manually blending in colors and colors. I mean, this whole background probably took me. This entire piece took about 5 to 6 hours.
Uh-huh.
So that I did the background like in 30, 40 minutes tops.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, no, not bad at all, right? So
I mean,
it's not the most
I say
complicated
that so
background ever.
yeah, but I
Huh?
say it so nonchalantly, but it would probably take me like 3 or 4 hours.
And look, this is not the most complicated background. I could have rendered the shit out of it, you know, but the characters are the focus here. So the
Right.
goal is to make sure that the characters uh, pop out, you know, but that the background, you know, has an element in there. It works, and you get a little something from the game, which is the main castle. And I just wanted this green to blue with the yellow clouds. I wanted the clouds to be white with that a saturated yellow, yeah, anime kind of yellow. You know what I'm talking about,
Hmm.
Brandon? Like
Yeah.
it's popular in anime. So now I'm painting additional details over here on top. You can see my grad maps are underneath. Now you could flatten that if you need the resources, because gradient maps can eat up CPU. So you
Slows
know.
everything down,
Mm-hmm.
bogs it all down.
Yeah.
I've had that happen, and then not realize why, and then I have like 80 to 100, 200 layers of just too much stuff.
Now my coloring process for the characters is really quite simple. I like to fill in the characters with the shade that they're going to be completely 100%, especially when I'm painting the background.
Uh-huh.
This way, the background becomes more the focus for me. And then what I'll do is I'll add a mask to that shade layer in the masks, which are these right here. A mask is this little button here, and when you click on that, it creates a mask, and anything in the mask that gets painted white, you will see. Anything that gets painted black, you won't see. So I paint, this is filled with, purple. They're filled with the purple, you can kind of see here. And then I create a mask and paint in or paint out the shade to create the light source. I find it easier to paint out the shade than to add tons of shadows. Does that make
Right.
sense, Brandon?
Yes. And masks are your friends. They really are. So if you're not comfortable using them or you're not good with them, learn to use them. I'm still not that great at it, but I learned the basics, and it helps a lot when filling in silhouettes and just simple shapes that you need to just try to fill and do things in. If I said that correctly,
Right.
or if
So
that makes any
no,
sense,
that
you
makes
know.
sense. And two, like one of the experiments here is how quickly can I kind of get a castle working and it not be. It's not supposed to be
Over rendered.
over rendered. I think now what I'm going to be doing is I got a process where I can sketch it with pens on my marker on a book, scan it in, and quickly digi ink it and color it that way. So I'm still working out that process. I don't have it quite down. This was just like one practice way to do that. But the cool part about this is the basic lighting. Look at that background's all set up. Now this is 11 minutes in, so into the speed paint, but this
Two
whole
hours in,
probably yeah, but honestly,
or hour.
yeah, about an hour. And taking my time too. Like I went back and experimented with some different brush types to see if a chalk brush would look kind of cool. When I'm ahead of schedule, I experiment a little bit more with different brushes just to see if a different look would come through. I'm not Noah Bradley. I'm not going to paint a photorealistic background. Like, there's some really amazing painters out there. I'm just trying to get like when you watch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, the backgrounds aren't super complex, you know, in terms of the rendering. Some are, but they're mostly not. They're mostly painterly.
Right.
That's kind of like my litmus test. I'm like, if it's good enough for Full Metal, it's good enough for Rob. Like, we have a ways to go here, folks. You have any questions about this process, Brandon?
Not yet.
I had to
Um,
restart Photoshop. See that? Yeah.
oh, that reminds me the importance of saving your art during the art process. Like you never
Well,
want to
yeah.
have it crash.
This was also because my brushes. I was putting some of the older brushes in,
Uh,
and it just dropped my brushes, so I had to reboot Photoshop. But yeah, you should save often. Yeah. Now, because I'm painting over the drawing, I can add little blades of grass with color. I don't like drawing grass, folks. I've drawn millions of blades of grass. When I was a kid, I couldn't draw characters, so I'd draw foliage, trees, trunks, grass, blades. You could just paint the stuff in.
right.
It's like I don't want to draw all that stuff. So it's really easy just to go in there and above the lines, paint in stuff. And there's no wrong way to draw a blade of grass, right? Like,
Right.
really isn't.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to mess that up. And those details and things like that, you can be loose and do paintbrushes and try things like that. And if you don't like it, the good thing is you just put it on a separate layer and you can just delete it.
Yeah, a lot of
So
people ask me, Rob, you have a lot of layers. I don't really notice how many layers I have because Photoshop was designed for that. I don't have to run around and click on which layer my stuff's on. If you use Control Alt and right click on something in Photoshop, it will automatically jump to the layer that is on. Now, if you fill your whole image up with black, it's going to jump to that layer because the whole image is filled with black. So if you see up here, there's a black, I'll turn that off so I can't select that. Right? So if you have a couple layers filled with black and you're doing glows and stuff on those black layers, you can lock those, turn them off, and then Control Alt right click on that thing you need to get to it. And then turn them back on. I lock them so I know what I turned off. Sometimes you have layers that you're not using in there, and if you
hmm
just turn them off, you're like, what did I? Oh no, what do I need to keep? Oh shit, I don't know what I turned off. So eventually I'll start working again. Here we go. So now what I've done is I've decided that I'm going to keep the background, and I select the characters, and then I made a gradient using the blue to yellow, and I've set that down to like an overlay, like 10-20%, and that just tints the character to the backgrounds a little bit. Because in the world, you're going to be, if you walk outside during sunset, you're going to be colored a little orangey. Like the world bounces light off you. I don't know if you've noticed, Brandon. If you ever gone outside and
Sometimes
yeah,
I'm occasionally.
there's this thing called life, and if you
Okay.
partake in it, you'll find that
I try not to.
yeah, well.
You know, I'm a real artist, okay? I don't experience life. I sit here and work on art. You see, I like when you tint the lines, which I don't think a lot of artists know about or do, which I never did until you showed me how to tint the lines and add, make them a different color, and it just makes certain things pop a lot better, and I like it. Is that something you just learned on your own, or you saw someone else do it, or?
No, I learned that. I used to have to manually trace the lines, or I'd lock the transparency and have to color every line
Right,
the color
right.
of
That's how I
something.
used to do it. Yeah,
Yeah, and that took 10 years. Remember the Ninja Gaiden piece I did for Play
yeah.
Magazine? Yeah, that took 10 years. So I spent like 8 hours doing that. I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. So at some point, I know Rachamba, when he first showed up, he's like, I set my lines to overlay. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, that isn't enough. So I would duplicate I tint the lines red or purple, depending on how I wanted that look to be. I
Uh,
duplicate that after setting it to overlay. And then I mess with every layer until I arrived at the linear burn. And I turn the opacity down to like 10, 15%. The only thing you have to make certain is that the flats, when you do that, these flat colors, that they go underneath all that line. Otherwise, you're going to end up with these weird overlays, these overlay layers. What I mean by overlay, I mean like if her tail there's purple. If that line underneath is not purple, it's the color of her skin, you're going to get this weird blend between red and purple with a
okay.
craggly little bit. That's why I was telling you I have to then manually select the lines and paint the color of the flat under each thing. So if you can get your flatter to do that, it can save you a lot of your own time as the colors. But that means Photoshop is now turning all those lines the color that it needs to be, not me, right?
Right.
It's way easier. I mean,
Luckily, you got.
if you're only doing a simple character, then it doesn't really matter. But I tend to draw a lot of stuff, so I don't got the time for manually painting each line. You can see it here. If it ever comes back around on the left-hand side of Robo, you could see this orange E color in the and a gray color in the fist. People out there now, they can pause the videos when they're up and look, and you'll be able to see that fluctuation. I had to go back and fix a couple areas that you did not do, Brandon.
Yeah, I just chose to ignore that part
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I was still, now moving forward on our next speed paint video, which will probably be April O'Neil or something, you'll see that the flats are much, much better. This was still learning flatting
Mm-hmm.
because it's not like I've always been a flatter or any type of colorist. I'm pretty much everything Rob is asking me to do. I'm learning right before doing so. So
Yeah.
it's no excuse for
King of
shitty
excuses.
spots, but not bad for learning.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I love it. I love doing flats. They're the greatest.
Now these little glows are just a layer that is set with an outer glow and a color overlay, which means anything I draw on there will turn the color that I want it to. So these little like firefly
Explain that
looking
again.
these little firefly looking things are a
Right.
layer effect. So I use an outer glow. I make it. Don't worry about that, folks. That's because I just split the video up into two. Um, we'll get back to it. So there you go. These little effects down here are a layer effect.
Mm-hmm.
So on layer effects, if you pick a color overlay, that means anything that you draw in the image will be the color of that color overlay. And then
Okay.
that means if I draw blue in there, but my color overlay is set to green, it'll always be green.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I create the glows. Now you're seeing me paint in the light sources. Now you might see me do this twice because what I do when I'm painting the light sources is I record them also live. I record them for Instagram because we promote. And sometimes the camera is fucking lopsided. So I have to do it twice. I check the phone and I go, that did not work out well. I go, do it again. So this is a mask, which you can see here. I've grouped all my shade layers together,
Mm-hmm.
and then I made it a folder, and then which is a group, and then I make a mask in that, and then I'm just painting out the light source. Now I'm doing these kind of sloppily, zoomed out, so they're roughed in, and then I can zoom in once they're roughed in and clean up the edges. I find that's just the easier way to work. If you try to zoom in and get all that done, you'll be there for 10 years. If you leave
Right.
it this far out, it's not going to print very well, you know. Looks fine on a phone, but you know when you get the print, these prints are always bigger than people think too. You know, so I'm basing this just that his sword is creating probably an extra light right here, and they're kind of like in shadow back here a little bit. So it's just kind of this way and darker over here. And if you want less shade gone, you can paint 50% gray. So white, 50% gray, black, or even a dark gray. So you can get value ranges of shade in here just by painting with different values of gray in the shade layer or in the mask.
That's
You're not
pretty neat.
limited to just white and black.
Right, you could find an in between.
Hmm.
Is that something they usually do? Maybe like for a cell shaded anime look or something,
You,
where
no, I mean,
there's
you can
like,
do it for anything. You can start off with the hard edge brush because they're a little faster to render sometimes.
uh huh.
And then once you like it, you can go around the edges with the painterly brush and soften it up, and it'll look all painted. Look at that. You can trick people. As you know, with those painterly brushes, you probably have to put down what, two, three, sometimes four strokes,
Yeah.
right? You know, to get the thing you want. But with the hard edge brush, you just lay it down once, right? And in the shade layer, it's really easy because you can see here I'm working right now in just black and white. I'm just hitting X to flip between the two in Photoshop. So I'm not like having to go over to my palette, select a color, come back, paint. Go to my palette, select a color, come back to paint. I'm just tapping left and right with my finger here. And I'm not leaning on my arm while I'm painting to do that. I did that for a couple years and fucked my arm up. Couldn't do a push-up for 12 months. Gotta be careful. Art injuries.
Yeah. Take care of yourself, artist. You think, oh, I'm just drawing. How bad could it be? But you do the same thing for a certain amount of time, it'll wear on yourself.
Now I
So
like this, so I've zoomed in and I'm cleaning up the edges, right? And you can use a lasso tool if you prefer. I kind of like the brush, you know. But for larger areas, I'll use the pen tool.
that just comes from years of control, right? You kind of
Yes.
know where you're going to go with the stroke, and you don't have to worry that much.
Yeah. And then I zoom out and look. Does it still look right? Yeah, it looks right.
Out in, out in.
I don't have to that you can make a duplicate of this and look at it on the other screen, which I do keep open while I'm working, but I
Hmm.
still have a habit of zooming out, zooming in.
Right.
It's just that's part of my. You can see how I had to clean up his nose, right? And those little areas.
And just for anybody watching who's experimenting coloring and shading and things like that, just be mindful of like the way every object curves and the light hits it, which a lot of people don't think about. Like just like the frog, for example, when the inside of his eyes where it's got the shade and the non-shade, and then here on his knuckles to the palms, or not palms, but the top of the hands, and the curves around the neck boa. Just think about how not only light hitting them directly, but how light would bend around the curves and objects.
Yeah, you
Which,
just want to maintain the three-dimensionality of the shape if possible. You know,
right, that's what I'm trying to say.
it's always going to be a flat drawing. You just want to give it kind of the illusion of depth. You know.
Yeah, and I notice a lot of times too when someone maybe will draw, let's say, a logo on someone's chest, like a Batman logo, they don't think how would the logo hit in between and then curve around, and then you go to color it, and the same thing kind of happens. They don't think, okay, light just doesn't hit flat; it has a bend or a curve around the edges. So
Right. This is going to be in three parts, so at some point the logo will start up again. So bear with me.
and you love this game, right?
Chrono Trigger?
Yeah,
Everyone loves this game. You're just the only one who hasn't played it.
I never played it. I just,
You missed out. I'll make
there's
you
a
play it. It's on the DS. You should fucking get it. Yeah. It's on the Wii U. You can get it for like $10.
I don't make enough flatting to afford video games, sir.
It's no Yokoi watch.
Yeah, I couldn't buy it, but w-
Everyone loves
would
Chrono
something
Trigger.
like the original artist of this game, if they saw it and hated it, would that affect you any? Would that hurt your feelings as an artist? I don't think I've ever asked you that
No,
before.
no. I can actually say when it comes to Japanese properties, I'm one of
Uh-huh.
the few people who've had to go through license or approval.
Right.
Obviously not with this, but when I did the No More Heroes 2, remember that?
Yeah.
That had to go to Suda 51 to get approved, and I did. And that was at the Play magazine after 10 years of service. One second. After 10 years of being in publication, they said that was the fastest they ever been approved.
Oh
So
wow.
I found that the
And
trick,
you're an American artist.
yeah, which they were like, an American did this. So, yeah, the trick is to make certain that you're paying attention to what's important. One, the faces, and two, the proportions. You know, so long as the faces match. Now, would this get approved by Square for an American magazine? I would say probably yeah. You know,
Hmm.
they might say Merle needs, or maybe I drew him too big, or that might be an issue. That they would say the scale of Robo might be a little big. I can see
Hmm.
them saying that. At that point, that's where they go, well, really. But you've seen it where someone tackles a Japanese property and it
It just goes way wrong.
way wrong, right? So um, now I can say I honestly know it won't bug me because the people that have rejected my art the most have been the Ninja Turtle people. I've
Yes.
had straight up rejections from Peter Laird, like don't ever do this. I've never been able to draw them professionally because for some reason I'm just not. I'm not what
And
they
you, and
want.
you love them so much.
And I
You
love, yeah,
love
I
the turtle.
really do.
We both love the turtles so much.
Yeah. And I've
But
had people constantly hit up IDW. You should let this go. And I've had editors, friends of mine that work at IDW, be like, Rob, and I'm not the guy. So,
right, I
the,
don't ever brag about doing flats, but if you had a cover for turtles or something, and I got to do flats on it, hell yeah, I'd be
yeah,
like, check this shit out.
yeah,
Look what I
that'll never
did.
happen. So no, I don't, they didn't like it, whatever.
Right.
There's not much I can do about it. What I would do is make certain that that becomes their preference. I didn't fuck it up.
Hmm.
Now when I did the Mass Effect 2 cover for Play magazine, I took a chance on drawing that in a style that is not Mass Effecty, and that didn't go over too well. So I learned my lesson. This part right here is kind of fun. The bigger areas. It's like which part of the parts of his armor, do I hit with a light, right? And it's that cross between trying to make him a little gleamy and a little bit more like hard edge metal, but it's just like still animated. So I'm still working out what that is. Like I don't have a good answer for that yet, folks. I just know like I like cel shaded art. I've just stayed away from it for so long because I can never sell it to a publisher. But now that I work for fans, people seem to be just fine with that. Thank fucking God. So I can now do more of it. Cartoons with details. Nothing wrong with that, right, Brendan?
Right. Yeah, I think the best way to go about it is just finding a blend of what your style is and what you're going for. So, this you're going for the look of the game, but also have your own style to it. And I think that goes with any creative thing, even cooking. You could take a recipe of something traditional, but add your own flair to it. I mean, that art's just the same way. You take things you love growing up or whatever as you see in other artists, and then you just try to blend it and to make your own way. So
I don't know what you just said, but sounds
someone
smart.
someone out there will get it.
Sounds
Someone
smart.
someone goes,
Perhaps you're
mm-hmm.
trying to say you want to blend a lot of your shared interests into your own art. For me, I just like a lot of details and I like animation. So rather than say I'm going to be the next Chamba or I'm going to be the next Sean Galloway, it's like no, I have a level of detail that I want to see, and it's going to take way too long to do that. So, so may as well just get on with it.
Right.
But I like animation. I don't think animation needs to just because it's animated doesn't mean it needs to be less detailed. I think of like the opening to Thundercats was way better than the actual cartoon. You know,
Same
so
with maybe the X-Men animated series, the
the
'90s one.
Japanese X-Men
Well,
intro
yeah,
is amazing. If you haven't
or
seen
maybe
that,
or maybe the Turtles intro.
yeah, the Turtles intro was fucking awesome, right? I'm a big
Right.
fan of that, especially the van, the turtle
Uh-huh.
van, and it's the speed lines, and it zooms up and they fly into the air.
Right.
Yeah,
They shoot out.
yeah. So now I'm cool with the shadows, and I'm adding a second layer of shade. And you can, I would limit it to no more than 3 layers tops.
Is this with gray or black?
This is with another set of purple. Just duplicate it, and then I just mask it in.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm actually adding shadow versus filling it with black and adding it, cutting it out. And I'm using the airbrush too inside there to soften up some of these areas, just to add a little bit of a slight gradient. I don't mind a slight gradient. I'm not trying to airbrush the characters, just a soft little simple gradient. They do it in animation all the time, like Disney cartoons. You ever watch the Ankama animes?
I have not.
And now we're into the part 3. So here we go. We'll wrap this up. Now you can see me. I make a duplicate. There's a way if you go to Window in Photoshop, forget the thing. But if you go into Window, you can duplicate your window, your image, so you can see another version of it.
Hmm.
The same image being updated. So I keep that open next to the Roughie on another monitor, so I can gauge what I'm working on to the Roughie. I want to make certain that the final matches the Roughie. On this piece, I get pretty close, but at the end of this, I'll show you the changes that I've made to push it closer to the Roughie. I never want to be in that position where I spent all this time and the 1 hour sketch is better. Like, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, nothing worse than your original loose sketch looking more energetic and fun than.
So again, this is the same process of zoomed out, blocking in the colors, and then zooming in and cleaning it up. It's the same process, just repeat for every character. Now, someone was telling me the other day, they're like, man, your Battletoads is way more detailed than that Chrono Trigger. I'm like, no, it isn't. Like, this Chrono Trigger piece has 7 characters and 16 plushies. There's so many things that you don't, I think it's hard to see all of it. Brandon, you did the flats, right? Did this stuff ever sneak up on you? Like,
I fucking hated it. Mind my language, sorry. Uh, it's like a fucked up puzzle or Where's Waldo. Like I'm thinking I'm done, and then I find one more necklace dinosaur, one more plushie, one more guy poking his head out of some corner, and I'm like, really? I'm like, you just had to add that extra detail, that extra Dragon Ball, that extra everything, and then I'm just like, well, looks like I gotta change up this layer and fix that, add this, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done. I walk away. I never send it to you when I think I'm done. I walk away, get a drink of soda, Mountain Dew, come back energized, and then I look it over again and I realize I missed some more shit. So it's really just controlled chaos. Like it's almost like a car wreck. It's just everyone wants to look at all this shit going on, and you think you've seen it all, and there's something new. Is that a?
well, I know too. I never want to be in that position where someone's like, "You forgot this, you forgot that." Like, no, I didn't. It's there. It might be in a
Oh yeah,
plushie form or on the necklace, but I'll make sure it's all there.
right.
So this is fun. So I'm getting the blades, these really clean blade arcs, by using the pen tool. And that's where you make a little pen, you anchor it, then come over and anchor it. So good for really mechanical, solid, hard-edged objects.
Right.
And now I take that break where I look like, okay, am I ready to move to the next step? Am I ready to go to glows and stuff? The glows are the fun part, but if you jump right to the glows, you're just going to end up with a giant glowy image. No point in that. So I'm adjusting now. I need to separate atmospherics. See this guy right here?
Hmm.
They're all merged together. So what I do is I select him, deselect everyone else using the flats that you made, and then I airbrush some of the green from the ground just to kind of separate. And I'll separate him from her, these plushies from him, just a little bit of atmospherics. You don't need more shadow. Shadow will bind them together. You have to add atmosphere. Things are separated by atmosphere. Things get hazier the further away they get. I see a lot of rookies when they first start keep adding more shadows to like separate characters. I'm like, it just makes things look closer together. Things that are
Yeah,
closer to you are
rookies.
darker.
Welcome to the big league, bitches.
Uh-huh. Well, do use one of your vague sports terms, right?
Thank you. I appreciate you
That was for
incorporating
you.
me in this.
It's for you. It's for
I
you,
think
Brandon.
I think you gave me an example one time about looking at mountains and just the clarity further and further and closer on
Yeah,
things.
they get hazier. They don't get darker.
Right.
Right.
So shadows aren't always the way to go. I like it. So you have the haze in the back, and then the cool, crisp firefly things in the front. It's
Yeah.
cool. Which and they help bring like the focus to the front. You know, just those the light.
At least that's the hope, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could just fuck it all up too.
Oh
That's
yeah.
always an
Oh yeah.
option. So another little trick here is I've selected the shade, inverted that selection so only these highlights are selected, created a new layer and filled that with the color of the sun, the light source, a light yellow. Blurred it and set it to like a dodge or a overlay layer or whatever. And that will give it them some additional lighting. And I'll kind of airbrush out or erase out using the airbrush some of the areas I want to keep dark. Adding a little smoke up on his. And then we get to start with the rim lights. This is the fun part. Where you have to manually go in and paint all the little edged lights. Now I'm just going to paint this color in. What I've done is I filled in the layer with light blue, and I'm in the mask, I'm painting it in. And again, I've selected light blue based on my my color roughy. So I already have these colors figured out. And then when I'm done, I'll apply the mask to cut everything out, and then set a glow, which I've already set the glow so you can see here. I'll turn it on and off as I work based on processing speed. Sometimes it can slow down. Or sometimes I don't want to see the glow while I'm working, but it just depends. This way you get a nice animated glow on the edge, and I didn't have to actually airbrush any of that shit in. Photoshop doing work for you. That's when people go, will you use this other program instead of Photoshop? I'm like, no.
No.
No. No, I know how to use this. I'm sticking with it, you know? And someone would be like, Rob, how do you get this in this other program, like Art Rage? I'm like, I don't know. I would use Photoshop. Couldn't tell you.
Is that so? Is that like the a blue or a white that you like
It's
to use?
light blue in the core. If it's going to be a blue glow, I'll pick a light blue. It's just like a
Uh-huh.
light blue. And then I'll make the glow a darker blue. And I'll change the glow a little bit here. It's a little hazier right now. I'll add a little bit more saturation to the glow. But the core of it's a light blue. It's not white. This way I always have the option of adding white if I need to add gleams. And gleams will be there, you know? Because if you want to, how do you add a gleam to white?
Right.
Can't.
Can't.
Right. So always make things a little off blue or off, you know, a light blue, a light yellow, and then that way you still have white as an option. Yeah, it's moving kind of fast. It's hard to say, man. Sometimes I speed these up to 8 times and they move too slow. Sometimes I speed up to 12, and it's moving a little quick, but maybe next time we'll try it. What's it? 46 minutes this thing goes. If I slow it down to 8 times, it'll probably end up 2 hours.
I'm not gonna lie, folks. I don't know what I can talk about the next 11 minutes. So faster video, faster.
Well, what I'm doing is zooming in and out, you know.
Uh-huh.
So now I'm adding the yellow
Is that
glue.
like a cream color, or is it?
Yeah,
a
it's a
yellow?
cream color. It's a light yellow.
Okay.
And then it has the outer glow applied to it with the
And
layer effects.
you like to use cream on a lot of the
For during
pieces, right?
daytime, I don't know if I'd use it in the middle of the night unless there was a neon light or
Okay.
a warm window. It's just
Gotcha.
warm or cool. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
if we were in a cavern and evil wizards were in there, or, you know, the skeleton overlord was fucking running around, it might be a light green, right? For a more ethereal, magic-y kind of feel, right?
Right.
So this is my animated, this is the quick animated way of getting some life in your image versus just rendering the shit out of something, you know? Little rim lights with glows. Wow, that moves a little fast.
Excuse me.
Sit back and enjoy.
Right. Don't put your face too close to the screen, people.
So that part's done. Now I'm going to add the bloom lighting. Now, you ever play a video game like Halo and it got all these cool glows? They call it
Hmm.
bloom lighting. Same basic idea. I jump between a screen layer, that's what this is here, or I set a layer to screen, and then you select the color you want, you can airbrush it in. And it gives you this kind of cool light version, kind of hazy version of the color. You can also use like a hard light layer sometimes, but that saturates more. Now I'm manually coloring in some harder rimmed gleams on this guy because he's metallic. So he's going to have one or two additional light sources or shade layers because he's going to be more reflective. Uh, Sometimes people do that to their animated characters. You ever seen the animated style? They add a lot of glossiness to them and they almost look like
Toys.
a new iPhone. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that might be a bit much
A
for me.
plastic look.
Yeah, it might be a bit much for me. I tend to side more with like the Don Bluth, or anime, Full Metal, some of the older animes too, like Lodoss War. I really like the way that stuff is colored in. So I'm just adjusting the shade color if it should be more purpley or if it should be more bluey because her hair is looking a little. And I'm just on the fly like adjusting with an adjustment layer. If you want to make changes to your file, I suggest adjustment layers. They're non-destructive. You can just turn them off if you don't want them, and you just mask in areas. I'm trying to see if I can her hair. If it's too much of a white to a dark, it can almost look like that chiaroscuro. You know what that means? Like it's those velvet paintings. So I'm trying to make certain that um, there's enough in between there. The rim lights is where I settled on. The rim light on the back of her hair helped tie that together. It's a lot of adjustments, folks. Now I do work in RGB, but I preview in CMYK. So you'll see here it says RGB. I'm in RGB mode. That way I can get all my glows. But I hit Control Y and I can preview in CMYK, which is based off my printing profile. There is a video in the art tips on printing and how to set that up with the exact same settings. So you don't have to wonder, what are your settings? Tell me. It's already there, folks. You can go check it out.
Which can, really ruin a piece if you mess it up. So it's always good to make sure that all your settings are print ready because you could spend all this time and then just turn around and mess up the printing.
Or it would just look weird and you're like, that isn't what I made.
Right. And then you think you did something wrong when you're just.
So all this stuff is just adjustments. It's just painting in little additional paints, softening up some of these edges here on the controllers and stuff, so they're a little softer than the characters. Uh, Fixing these lines that are fucked up because the flats didn't go all the way to the edge. And then I'll get to add the eyes. I save the eyes for last. The eyes are my favorite. There's not a lot to do with the characters, but with Frog, um, I'm looking for. Oh, that's what Brandon called. If you saw that really quick, that was Skype. That was Brandon calling in.
Yay, me.
Yeah. This is where Brandon questions all my color choices.
Hmm.
You just
Very, very,
are
very,
you going to
very
keep that
aggressively.
yellow like shit like that?
Hmm.
Mm.
Very passive aggressively.
Now this is where I said no. You were like that right there is where Brandon goes. I really like the green in the background. So I said, why don't I just give you a print full of green to blue?
Hmm.
Save me all the effort of drawing the shit. So what I'm doing there is I'm just selecting. I control click the line arts and then I'm just painting into them to fix the color. And then I'll add the glows here. There's tons of little glows and then the eyes and stuff. Sometimes people, while I'm streaming, ask questions. So I open up things. This is also why I generally don't draw in eyes while I'm drawing. People go, how come you get the pupils? When are you going to add the pupils? I'm like, I paint them in. I
All
don't,
right.
I don't eyes like are glossy and they reflect light. I don't understand the point of drawing them. So I have to now, so people leave me the fuck alone. But I still erase them and paint them back in every time. So I'm not painting more realistic eyes on an animated character, it looks cool. I like the way the frog's eyes. You'll see how they come out. I like the way they came out. So I'm just using my brush here for the eye. And then I want to add some color, so I make an overlay layer, and then I'm adding those little cool white little reflections, little gleams, little glossy eyes, little the wet eyes. And that black, you're wondering, what just happened? How did it get glossy? All that is an overlay layer with black on top. And if you just airbrush it in a little bit, you'll get that cool wet look. It's a
Right.
trick. It's a trick, folks. It's an illusion. It doesn't actually
al-
exist.
It almost looks like oil painting.
Yeah, but it's not. It's an illusion. It's just an overlay layer. You know, I used a layer. Oh my god, I cheated. You know? You could do the whole piece like that if you wanted to make it look like Huntai Kim. I've done that. Remember the April versus Karai? So I did the whole
Yeah.
piece. Just like, it's all wet looking, right? I love looking at my dog's eyes. She got those wet puppy dog eyes and shit. That's what I use for reference. Where are we at? We're almost to the end. And then I'll show you the further adjustments I made. Sometimes I make adjustments off camera. And in this case I did. So this right here, this little smooge that looks like a hotspot, I filled a layer with black. I set it to color dodge, and I'm painting inside the color dodge layer with the yellow or the uh, the the reddish brown color here,
Hmm.
and that creates these little hotspots. Same with in his eyes, the blues, and their lips.
Is that a burn layer?
No, it's filled with black and set to color dodge.
Or dodge? That's right.
Yeah, and I color with my brushy, the softer edge brush.
Now you're just kind of scanning here for areas that you think need
Yeah, I'm just
touching up.
jumping around. I'm gonna go work on her eyes, so she's not all crazy looking and shit. And I'll work on her eyes, and I'll just tap little areas. And I know I got to get these lips still. And I jump. See, there's her lips. I jump around because you get bored.
All right.
Yeah.
You get stagnant in one area for too long.
Yeah. This needs a little extra shade on the sword. I'm using the pen tool to create the little gleams and stuff. I'll keep some of it. I'll get rid of the rest. I got rid of the gleam and just decided to select the sword and airbrush a hard uh, little light in on the edge. That was based off something I saw in a Full Metal pic. The way they did it there, I'm like, oh, they figured that out. That looks nice. I'll just do that. So keep ample reference, folks. And then now I'm selecting. I also saw in Full Metal the way they colored Al, the big armor dude. Like they'll select the shade layer and around the edges create a core shadow. So that's what I'm doing here, airbrushing in these little core shadows. So it has a little bit of gradient put into the characters, but they're not super airbrushy. Then I went and flattened the whole image, right? Made a duplicate, flattened that image. I select layer properties, and in layer properties, you're going to get this thing called RGB. You can turn
Hmm.
off 2 of those, right? Those are the RGB channels for that layer. Turn off 2 of those, click OK, and with the arrow keys, move the image left to right, and it creates this off, out of focus look,
Uh-huh.
and then you can airbrush that in. So, all right, so this is the final. Let me explain to you some things I've made since that video. A couple things. One, I lightened up Frog's face. Initially, it was all dark around here. I lightened that up. I added way more blue. I painted way more blue in to the size of these characters based on the roughy. Like if we look at the roughy, you can see I had this blue light down here, and they had these bloom lights. Like she has orange in her shirt and lime green in her scarf, and that wasn't initially there. I had to go and add that in to the lime green, the red. I added a little bit more green using hard light layers. So you make a layer with hard light, you airbrush some of that color in, it gets a little more saturated. His scarf had more orange from the fire put in. Added a little bit more glowy to his hair to match my roughy. So if we flip between the roughy, And the final piece, I mean, that looks like if that was what you sent to your editors and you turn that in, you get paid.
You get money.
You get money, money in the bank. It's not just a WWF fucking trick, right? Like this is true. This was complicated, but it was a joy. So I will not be doing any more Chrono Trigger, maybe a commission, but this is my Chrono Trigger piece. You know, this is it.
The one and only.
The
forever.
one and only. It's got the strategy guide, the shit I had when I was a kid. It has the game, the box. I actually own that. Every time my Chrono Trigger thing, I'll wrap this up. So I only played Chrono Trigger by renting it at Blockbuster Video. Could never buy a copy. I didn't have the money. A couple years later, I was working at Pizza Hut. We had this thing called Hollywood Video. I don't know if you had it, like a competitor to Blockbuster Video. I go in the Hollywood Video, and they had a used game section. I don't know why. They were getting rid of their games for, they're getting rid of their Super Nintendo games for PlayStation and Nintendo 64, right? I look in the used game, and there is a brand new, never been touched copy of Chrono Trigger. Sealed.
Jeez.
I was like, did you repackage? Like, no, we got a few of these lying around, dude. And I'm like, $16. Bought it right there.
Steal.
Took it home, opened it, played the fuck out of it. And then my ex-girlfriend stole it from me. So I don't have it anymore. I found the treasure.
That happy story had a horrible ending.
The one thing, dude, the one thing she took was my fucking copy of Chrono Trigger. Yeah.
You could have just ended that story at you took it home and played the heck out of it. And
Yeah.
That should have been the end of the story. And everyone would have been like, yeah. And then you just brought it down.
She took it. So, but that's the final piece. So, I'm happy with it. And
I'm
I've
happy
sold
I don't
sets.
have to do the flats on it anymore.
Yay. All right, everybody. So there's the roughie, there's the final line arts, and there's the final colors. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Please subscribe to the channel. Brandon, where can people find? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah. And if you want to see any of me doing the flatting, I occasionally am learning how to make better content for my Instagram page to post videos of me doing the flats for Rob's art. So you can kind of see the middle work that I do.
Oh, you want to see what Brandon did? Everyone want to see what Brandon did? Well, how about we'll do this, right? So Brandon feels like he's still part of the group.
And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at
This
Let
is Brandon's
Heavy.
selection flats right here.
LEAD
that becomes this.
Heavy.
Right? That becomes this. Oh, look at that. Looks like a Spectrum ZX or C64. Yeah, it's pretty. Oh, wow. There, Brandon. There. Everyone saw what you did.
Yay, look at me. I helped. So, yeah, mostly just find me on Instagram at Lead Heavy. LEAD Heavy.
The links are below.
Mega Potato.
The links are below, folks. All the links are below. You can find everyone there. All right, everybody. We'll see you soon on the next SketchCraft Live. Peace.
Thanks for viewing.
It's over, folks. Go home.